Hey, shalom, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Barakatham to all of Israel. Shalom, Yahweh Shamar, Allah Ta'ala, Hashem, Yahweh Shah to the sisters. This is the ISUPK Las Vegas Wednesday law class. Once again, we start out at 1 West 125th Street in Harlem, New York, and we are under Commanding General Yohana. And this message and this broadcast is for blacks, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that are scattered abroad across the globe or the four corners of the earth, man. And we out here preaching and teaching our brothers and sisters, you understand, to come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments and serve the Most High properly in its entirety so that the Lord can deliver us out of this hellhole of a place we call America. You understand? And it's important that we Salaki, let me shut a broadcast, but it's important that we take heed and take note and pay attention in these classes, because this is our warning that we're getting. This is us coming back into form that many of the apostles and followers of Christ wanted to see this day of us coming into this form to where we're serving the Most High properly, you know what I'm saying, in our captivity. So if you could share the broadcast, please, and thank you. Give me a second while I share the broadcast. But yes, we are here to serve the Lord, man. We are in this captivity, serving out, our captivity righteously. You know what I'm saying? We're here to serve our Father in heaven. You know what I'm saying? And honor our King Christ by representing him in its entirety, represent him with good integrity. You understand? And as us as brothers and sisters in this truth, our integrity comes from this Bible. Our integrity comes from the law. And in the law, give me 1 second. And in the law is where we find our knowledge, where we find our, you know what I'm saying, our existence, where we find our culture. You understand? And these laws have existed since the beginning of time. See, the Christian church, they'll have you to believe that the laws are done away with. We're here to show you that you must still keep the law. And that is the only way that we will be delivered out of this hellhole that we call America, man, out of Babylon. Our ticket to salvation is in our obedience to the Most High. In order for you to be obedient, you must know what's right and what's wrong. It's just like a child. A child is going to do what he wants to do until you correct your children. If you tell your children not to touch the stove, not to play with to put their toys away, then the children will know what's right from wrong, and they will repeat this as a habit. And this is something that we're trying to establish right now on the earth again. These habits of us, these habits of us. Hold on 1 second. These habits of us following the law, statutes, and commandments, and us keeping our culture, you know what I'm saying, and us being separate in our culture, you know what I'm saying, in America, separating ourselves from America. All right, shalom to you as well, SPA. Yeah. So tune in to class. We're going to prove today that the law is forever and that the law has been here since before Moses, and it has been here after Moses and was preached after Moses. So that's the Old Testament and the New Testament. You understand? Christians don't understand that. Most people think that the law started with Moses, and that is a false a fallacy. You understand? That's something that's untrue. The law didn't just be started with Moses. It was established with Moses. You understand? Moses set up the law in a written form and set up a society with laws. You understand? That way, as he established law and order. But before Moses, the men of God our forefathers, you understand, they also too had to follow the laws that the Most High set, and that's why the title of this class is that the laws are forever, because that's what exactly we are experiencing right now, a time where we need the laws ever so more. You know what I'm saying? Each day that we grow up in this society, each day that we come in, and each day that we go by and passing in America, we see that America is getting more harsher and crueler towards us, and it's hard for us to cope in this society. So in this society, we need to establish our own law and order, and our law and order and structure comes from the Bible. And it shows you in the Bible that the law is forever, and it is never going to be given up. And this is our key to salvation and our redemption, you know what I'm saying, out of this place, man. You want to have power, you want to have rulership and dominion over the earth, this is your ticket. This is the golden ticket to get you into the kingdom of heaven, man. And that's to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, which abided forever, according to the scriptures, man. You understand? And we're going to bring some of this stuff out in scripture. As you know, in the world, there's so much going on, you know what I'm saying? And our leaders have failed us. Our leaders are leading us astray. Everything that you see when you turn on the TV is teaching you to sin. It's teaching you to not follow the law. It's keeping you in sin, because our oppressor knows that if he can keep you in sin, then he can stay in rulership, and then that your salvation will be delayed. You understand? But the Lord has prophesied that this salvation will not be delayed. You understand? Because we are doing the work right now. And that's by being in these classes, learning these laws, statutes, and commandments, and abiding in them, living in them, and putting these things inside your heart and mind, and personifying the law. You understand? That means doing the law. It's an action. It is not just a belief. One would have you to believe that you can just understand and know the law without doing the law. And that is the opposite of what we have to do. We have to know and do the law. You understand? We have to be the examples of the law in incarnation. You understand? In the flesh. Right? There is not an example. It's just like, once again, children. You as a parent are the examples for your children. If you are a weed smoking whore, guess what your daughter is going to be? A weed smoking whore. You know why? Because she's seeing you smoke weed, do drugs, you understand, shake your tail, you understand, and do all these other things that's inappropriate. And what is she going to know? She is going to know to do the same thing. So us as the men and priests of the Lord, we have to set the example of what to do and what not to do for the rest of the people. And that's why these classes are extremely important, because this is where you download information, and then you go inside your households, and you, in return, you understand, you establish this same understanding amongst your brothers, your sisters, and your mother, father, and your children. You understand? And you take this, and then that's how we are able to establish the kingdom of heaven right here in front of our eyes. You understand? And before you know it, our King and Lord and Savior, Christ, Yahushua, you understand, who the world calls Jesus Christ, will return and destroy all of our enemies. You understand? And we will be delivered out of America and back into our land. And that's how the story goes. But first and foremost, we have to break down these walls of falsehood that the Christian church has established and that America has taught us. And that's by saying that the laws are done away with. We're just going to give you a brief recap in history today on the laws and how they existed pre-Moses and after Moses. You understand? In the Old Testament, New Testament, the laws have been here since Genesis, right? And how do we know that? Because the Bible is a book of definition. It defines itself. The Bible is a book of self-defining. You understand? It teaches you everything you know inside it. It is an endless oracle of knowledge and useful information for our people only. We are the only people that should be using this information, and we're the only people that understand why this information is important to us. Everyone else is just merely trying to they're merely trying to imitate, right? When you're trying to imitate something, that means it's artificial. You're not the real thing. We're not just trying to imitate. We are reliving these things, right? There's one thing to be imitation. Imitation is fake, right? We're not trying to be the imitation of something. We're trying to relive. That means we're trying to bring this thing right back. The status that we was in and when we were serving the Lord and honoring the Most High, we are trying to get back to that status. You understand? And that's what Christ wanted us to establish upon his departure. You understand? He wanted us to establish a culture of serving our Father, not only his Father, but our Father in heaven, honorably, integrably, you understand, and doing this thing forever throughout our generations. You understand? We have went astray from our culture, and now we are trying to use the scriptures in the Bible as a roadmap to becoming, to getting back to where we want to be, right? We're trying to have that roadmap back home. You understand? Back where we have our Father's protection, right? We're trying to regain and reestablish that protection. So let's just get a little, first off, what is a sin? Because the law is centered on the word sin, or the word sin is centered on the law. What is a sin? Most Christians do not know the answer to this. Most Christians will tell you a sin is something bad, which is a general, very general, broad statement. But we are here to establish truth and understanding in all things that we read and learn. So a sin, once again, we are going to look up in our Bible what a sin is, because the Bible is a book of definition. There is nothing in the Bible that doesn't get defined, that you can't define within the scriptures themselves, right? So let's look up. We're going to go to 1 John 3 and 4. Let's get to that quickly. Right? So this is the book of 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4. Whosoever committed sin transgresseth also the law. For sin, here's the definition part, is the transgression of the law. Right? So sin is the transgression of the law. The first people to sin or transgress the law, and what is law? The commandments, the statutes that the Lord has command. A commandment is what? In just a general standpoint. If I say a commandment, that's an order, right? That's an order, not just any old order. This is an order given to you by your Father, the creator of the heavens and the earth and the universe and everything that exists in our knowledge, right? That exists in the world and outside of the world. He has commanded and told and given us an order to do something. That is what a commandment does. So a sin is you not doing the order that God has told you to do. Once again, we're going to bring it up just like a child and a father in your household, something you can relate to. You in your household with your children, you tell your children to clean their room. If the children do not clean their room, if you give them a allotted time period, I need this room clean now, and the children do not clean their room, you are going to have some sort of punishment. These are the judgments that the Lord has. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be a belt to butt situation, or if it be, you know what I'm saying, taking away something or standing in the corner, whatever you have established as your judgment for your orders not being completed, right? So this is the same pretense and same context of which we are to live on the earth. We are on the earth to live by the commandments, the orders of our Father who is in heaven. And where you find those orders, you find them in the Bible. And these orders existed once he chose a nation to be his people. And he started with Adam and his family, giving him dominion over the Garden of Eden, the land in which the Lord chose for Adam to live. And he gave Adam specific orders, which is called commandments. So you think of a commandment and a law, it's just no different than America. America has orders that you must follow, given to you by a governing body, right? An established democracy, or whatever, if you want to call it, bureaucracy. You know what I'm saying? A government, right? These people have told you that you can't do certain things, and that they allow you to do certain things. They tell you what you can and cannot do, right? And that's the same thing with our Father, who is supersedes any American government or any government on earth, for that matter. You understand? You are to follow his orders before any order. You understand? If you're thinking of following an order and there's a contradiction between what orders to follow, the Lord comes first and foremost. He is the creator of all the kings of the earth, as well as the lands of the earth, as well as these governments. You know what I'm saying? When I say create, I don't mean he established the governments, but he is in control of who is allowed to be in control of the people. Right? So, once again, we establish what a sin is. If you haven't read, it's 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Sin is the transgression of the law. Simply put, the breaking of God's orders, his commandments, something that he told you to do. There isn't a commandment doesn't exist without instruction. Instruction and commandment go hand in hand, right? If someone's telling you to do something, that's an order. That means it must be done. There is no option for you to not do it. There is no choice in you saying, well, I might do it, I might want to do it. This is something that you have to do. Because who's giving the order? You know, people like to follow orders according to who's giving them. If it's somebody they don't like, they're not going to listen, right? If I just tell some random stranger in the street what he needs to be doing, he's not going to listen to me, right? If I tell some person, hey man, you shouldn't walk in the street, in the middle of the street like that, and he's determined to walk in the middle of the street, I don't have the authority over him, right? Because he's going to look at me as someone who did not create him, who has no bearing on his life. Although my intentions may be good, but my authority that I have over this person does not exist. But our ultimate authority is the Most High God. He is the authority over all things. If I create something and give it life and give it instruction and give it power, don't you think I have the right to tell it what to do and what not to do? This is the problem with man and woman on the earth. They think they can choose and do what they want to do. The free will effect, right? Yes, you have the option to be able to do things. However, the free will effect is a cliche, is a mirage, if I may, right? And I'm gonna show you how it's a mirage. Because if I give you orders to do something and tell you if you don't do this, you will die, or this will happen to you, or you will be judged accordingly, does that mean that you can just go out and do what you want to do? Or is that a stipulation, meaning that I'm telling you to do this under the pretense that I have authority to make decisions on if that's not done, right? I can also issue a punishment. You understand? So there is no such thing as free will, because if you're going to be punished for you exercising or going against a order, then how is that free will? Yes, you have the right to do the order or not. Yes, you can. You can have the choice to, and we'll give you an example. If the Lord said not to eat, this is something so simple, eat pork. right? And it's something simple, but people struggle with it. Told you not to eat pork. Does that mean that pork isn't going to be there? They sell it in a grocery store. Somebody's out there eating pork or says that this pork is able to be eaten. And somebody said that it's not. So who are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to your own? It's there. The free will effect would be the pork is in the grocery store there for you to eat it if you want to eat it. But the orders given to you by your father is there written down telling you that he doesn't want you to eat these things. So who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to your own lust? You're going to listen to your fellow man who is not, we know the man that I'm talking about, the oppressor, right? Who has the pork industry, who's created a whole industry for that to be served as food, to the man of perdition, the man that goes, that doesn't, and this is a whole nother breakdown, but this is why we call the so-called white man the devil that the Bible speaks of, because he is the one who runs that industry. He is the one who's putting in your mind that it's okay for you to eat these things. Because if you had the men of God over you and your authority, and this is the whole authority part, your father is the authority in heaven over you, giving you direction. However, your oppressor is your authority on the earth, telling you it's okay to go against your father. What does that remind you of? This is why you got to understand and get in class and tune in, because that is the serpent in the garden who beguiled Eve and told her that she could eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. All right? He told us it's okay for that to happen, for you to do that. And what did Eve do? She soaked up that culture, and she took away from her own culture and ate from that tree and lost her culture and her identity, just like you have done, eating from America's tree, right? The American tree. And now you know the evils that come with the Most High, the bad side of the Lord and the good side. More so the bad side, because you're in captivity and you're in hell. You're in these barrios and projects. You're in these slum, low-income housing areas. You understand? It's all from you being beguiled. And once again, America is the land of the serpents, the land of the people, the land of the people that want to beguile you and trick you and lure you away into temptation. All right. That's why I said you have the option to serve the Most High God in its entirety, just like our forefathers and foremothers did. Or you can serve your own lust, or you can go and activate your free will. Yahweh Bahasham Yahushua is a child molester. What? My bad. Let me ignore that. But anyway, so like I said, man, you understand? We have the options. However, if I'm given a commandment by the ultimate authority, like I said, there's two authorities in this kingdom. The authority is our oppressor who's over us, who's setting the precedence, who's giving you the culture. He's teaching you right from wrong according to their lust and their mind. And then you have the scriptures, the holy scriptures, who is the word of God, who gives you the authority, gives you his instruction, and it comes from our authority in the heavens, our Father, right? Our forefathers was ordered to follow the authority in the heavens, and this is something you should as well, right? And we're going to start with the book of Baruch, chapter 4. This is in your Apocrypha, something that you Christians don't know about, and you don't pick up this book, but we are going to open up the book ourselves. So we're going to go to Baruch, chapter 4, verse 1. Give me 1 second while I get it. The book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 1. This is the book of the commandments of God. This is exactly what the Bible is. You understand? The Bible, not in its entirety, but mostly centered around being the book of the commandments of God. This is what we find in the Bible, the books that show you his orders. Commandments are orders. Law meaning it's an absolute order. It must be followed. It is principle. When we say the law, it's like the law of gravity. What goes up must come down, right? That's the law of gravity. You cannot change the law of gravity. You understand? You can only go outside the existence of gravity, right? Only time the law of gravity is in effect is where there is no gravity. Other than that, the law of gravity is absolute. What goes up must come down. If I throw something in the air, it is going to come down 100 out of 100 times. So when we say this is the commandments, the book of the law, and we tell you that the God's commandments is the law, that means that this is absolute and it must be followed. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. There is no pondering. There is no maybe I do, this ain't for me. I don't believe in that. Whether you believe or not, these laws have to be followed. It's not up to you to determine if you believe in it. Once you are created, once you are born into this world, it's just like in America. You don't have a choice. Once you're born in America, you must follow American laws. You cannot exist outside of American law unless you are not in America. Then you have to follow the law of wherever you are. So in this world, we cannot exist outside of God's law because we were born into a scenario where our forefathers and foremothers made a covenant with the Most High to be his people, and he was to be our God, and that we would follow the law forever. You understand? Back to the book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 1. This is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. The law that endureth forever. The law that's going to be here forever. From the beginning, forever is from the beginning to the end. So there is no end, right? Because there won't be an end for our kingdom and our rulership. So it will endure forever, right? Forever is a long time, isn't it, right? And all they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. This is the parameter of how the law works. So you wonder why your family members are dying, and you wonder why babies die. You wonder why your sweet grandmammy died. You wonder why your brother and your sister died. Your friends and family lose their life on a daily is because all that leave the law shall die. This is why we see death, because you are not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments in its absoluteness, right? You are not being integrable to the Most High and to our Lord and Savior, our King Christ, Yahushua. And that's why this book is so important, because it lets you know, it gives you the correction and the instruction and the invite and the advice on how to serve and live out in this world. Baruch just said that this law is the law that endureth forever, and those that leave it shall die. Is that not what's happening right now? You're celebrating Christmas, Thanksgiving, and all these pagan holidays and dying within the next month or two. You're eating all the pork that the American government will allow. You're putting bacon on everything. And aren't you dying in these hospitals of disease, cancer, right? They got a million different cancers that you're coming up with. You eat because you're eating what you want to eat. You're not following the laws. You're out here laying with any and everything, catching these sexual transmitted diseases, tearing up your wound as a woman, as a man, tearing up your prostate or whatever, comes with that, because you're not keeping the law. And like we said in the book of Baruch, this is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. And all they that keep it shall come to life. Right? All they that, this is written by the Lord. This is absolute. You understand that? This is no if and just no maybe this is right. Maybe you interpret it. This ain't none of that. This is absoluteness. It's just like the law of gravity. What goes up must come down. You throw something in the air right now, it ain't getting stuck up there. It's going to come down. That is 100 times out of 100. 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000. There ain't no breaking. There's no error in the law of gravity. And in this law, when the Lord has sent his priests and prophets to give you the words of God and give you the understanding, the oracles of life, he's telling you that the law endureth forever, and all they that keep it shall come to life. So if you're looking at your situation, then you want to make your situation a better situation. You want to get out of the troubles that's following you everywhere you go. You can't get right in your relationships. You can't get right with your family. You don't know how to treat people. You don't know how to talk to people. You don't know how to handle the problems that you're facing on the daily. Then maybe you should keep these laws so that you can come to life. Maybe you should be around brothers and sisters who are keeping the law so they can show you, just like a good parent would show a child, how to live and give them the proper instruction and guidance on how to survive, right? But such as leave it shall die. This is a warning to you. You leave the laws and you shall die. This is simple, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. This is not rocket science. The law of gravity is much more difficult to understand than this. There's places where gravity don't exist. You go swim in the ocean, you gonna float all the way to the top of that water. You're gonna float in that water. You're going out of space. Gravity don't exist. But right here on Earth, on land, these things exist, man. And that's the same as this law, right? So we're gonna drop that. We established what sin is, the transgression, the breaking of the law. We're going to just show you a couple things. We're going to show you a couple scriptures, right, that substantiates that the law is forever. We'll go to the book of Psalms 119 and 60. Let's get the book of Psalms, man, and read the important things that the Lord has established for us. All right, it says Psalms 119. In a second. All right. And 160. It's the book of Psalms in 119 and 160. Thy word is true from the beginning. This is speaking on the Lord. His words were true from the beginning. What is the beginning in the Bible? What is the beginning in the Bible? Anybody in the chat, type it in. What is the beginning in the Bible? Because this is what this is talking about. This is the beginning. For time's sake, I'm going to give it to you. I don't see nobody typing in the chat. This is an interactive class, so you have any questions or anything about what I'm saying that you want to have if you want to have any type of discussion on anything, if you believe that I'm saying something that is not true, then let's talk about it. This is an interactive class. So your participation is very necessary. What is the beginning according to the Bible? I'm going to give it to you. The word Genesis. What is the definition of Genesis? Let's look it up. The definition of Genesis. Genesis means an origin, creation, or beginning. So when we read this, thy word is true from the beginning, is speaking, thy word is true since from Genesis, the beginning, the creation of mankind, the creation of the world, the universe, the stars, the heavens, the earth. The Lord's words were true, right? And every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever. Thy righteous judgments endureth forever. You can't have judgment without law and order, without commandment. These judgments endureth forever because these judgments are centered upon your cooperation and your understanding and participation in keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Because there's a judgment for you not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. There is a penalty that comes with you. We read it in Baruch. You step outside this scope of the law, statutes, and commandments, then you're dying, and we're seeing it. That's why we're here to save our brothers and sisters, man. The so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans who make up the 12 tribes of Israel, who are the chosen people of the Most High God, the only people that the Lord has chosen to live and endure and given judgment and law to. These laws are only for the children of Israel. And we're going to show you that. We're also going to go to Psalms 119 and 1. 1 second. Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of the Lord. That sounds like those who keep the commandments are blessed. Who walk in the law of the Lord. This is the purpose of the law. This is in Psalms. We want to be blessed. The Lord has blessed those that keep those commandments. That's a good thing. There's great reward that comes with you keeping these law, statutes, and commandments and adding them to your life and your lifestyle. For you giving up your cigarettes, you giving up your drug addiction, you giving up your whoredom, and you giving up your own lust and temptations of what you want to do, what you think is right, and getting understanding of the law, statutes, and commandments, and doing the Lord's will, what he wants to be done and what he thinks is right. There is great blessing found in that. Not only is it life, but on your daily worries and troubles. No more do you have to trouble yourself with Christmas time and worrying about pleasing your family based on gifts and spending money and going broke for the Christmas. And no more do you have to worry about committing a New Year's resolution and did you keep up with your resolution. No more do you have to worry about certain diseases that's caused through eating the unclean animals of the earth, putting that in your body. There's great reward that comes with this obedience to the Most High, man. It is a whole new life you are given. And all that you've done in the past is forgiven according to the scriptures. We're going to drop that and go to verse 44. So shall I keep the law continually forever and ever. This is why we keep the laws forever, so we can be blessed forever. This is not, excuse me, in the book of Psalms, they didn't say that they're going to keep the laws until Christ came. They didn't say that they keep the laws only in their generations. They understand that this is important throughout all generations to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. That's why we're going to keep the law in all of our generations of our life, man. Well, that's another topic to get into, regeneration. When you die, you come back through your lineage, through your children. Right? So that's why they understand. So shall I keep the law continually forever and ever. That's forever is a very long time. Forever doesn't end. It's an endless time period. There's no end date to forever. There's no until we are delivered. If God wanted you to only keep the laws until Christ came, then he would have said until you are delivered from the Messiah. He would have prophesied that. You are to keep the laws until Christ comes back. That's not what he said. That's not what their understanding is. Their understanding is that the law endureth forever. That's how I'll be blessed. That's how I'll live forever, have everlasting life. That's how I will escape death, by keeping the laws forever, right? Let's drop that and go to 2 Kings. We're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 37. This is the book of 2 Kings, chapter 17, verse 37. It says, and the statutes and ordinance and the law and the commandments which he wrote for you, ye shall observe to do forevermore. What is that talking about? The statutes and the ordinances and the law and the commandment which he wrote for you, ye shall observe to do forevermore. Not until you get into 2024 or into this generation, the new millennium, the 19th century, whatever, 20th century, my bad, do you have to not keep the commandments. It's everything that we're reading is talking about forevermore. The law is forever, forevermore. You have to do these things forever, right? This is not something that you have an option to do. This is something that must, and is absolute in its entirety, must be done. And it's not something that is negotiable, because if you leave the commandments, then death is sure to follow you. That's when you die. And our goal is to live. We want to live. We have families to raise. We have people that love us. We have a duty to do on this earth to be integrable people, not for as an American citizen, but as an Israelite, as a chosen person, man or woman or child of the Most High, and represent the Most High, our God, in truth and absoluteness. And he's given us the secrets on how to do it, and that's through the law. Right? So let's get into a little bit of history with the law, because Christianity will have you believe that Moses not only established the law, but the law didn't come until Moses. Right? This is something that is a fallacy that they teach that is historically wrong, because the law existed with Adam. Adam was given dominion over the Garden of Eden and commanded. The first commandment that was given to Adam was to not eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. What does that mean? Well, it's a separate breakdown, but for time's sake, I'll give you what the actual tree of knowledge and good and evil is. And that's the nations that will cause you to err against the Most High, and you will understand his bad side. You will see his judgments. You understand? His judgments existed in the garden with Adam. Adam transgressed, he sinned because he was commanded by the Lord to not take on the culture. And that's what's eating from the tree of knowledge and good and evil, is putting on another culture, something that we have done in this American culture. Every time you have a woman go out in boyish and booty shorts with her butt cheeks out. Every time you have a man out sagging his pants with his butt crack showing. Or some man living an alternative lifestyle, or some woman living an alternative lifestyle. Or you going to that fish place and ordering you some catfish and shrimp. You going to that seafood boil and getting that crab and soft shell crab and all the different type of variations of crab, abominations that the Lord don't want you to eat, along with that pork sausage you put in there, right? With you marrying a woman from another nation, your love as a man for that so-called white woman, that Asian woman, that African woman, that Arab woman, and vice versa for the sisters, for that white man, Asian, African, and Arab. These are the things that the Lord ordered us not to do. And this is why the commandments are important. You understand? It's because without his instruction, you're going to go do those things. You're going to go marry that white man and that white woman and make babies. And you'll be, and the Lord will have to destroy your lineage because you've brought in a unclean, unpure, tampered with bloodline into your royal lineage, because you are royalty. You are the only royalty on the earth. These other nations are playing royalty. They're imitating royalty. It's imitation. It's fake. It's not real. You so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives are royalty on the earth, the only royalty. All right, let's get that. Let's drop that and get into some history. So there's a notion that the law, statutes, and commandments didn't exist prior to Moses. So let's get into Genesis. We're going to go to Genesis, the 4th chapter. And we're going to start with Adam's lineage, because Adam was the first man given commandments on earth. And we're going to prove that. And we're going to dispel some things that people don't, some things that people don't understand about the Bible and these scriptures. So this is the book of Genesis, chapter 4, and we're going to go start at verse 3. Actually, you know what? We'll start at verse 1 so we can get the context of this, right? And Adam knew Eve, his wife. And when we see that in the Bible, when we say knew a woman, that's old Quaker English for basically laying down, sleeping with her, marrying her, right? Getting her impregnated. All of these things that come along with sex, right? And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord, right? So these are the first children of the first nation that the Lord has chosen, not the first people on earth. That's contrary to people's belief. Adam and Eve wasn't the only people around during this time. But these are the first children of the new Adam and new Eve who was given instruction and the breath of life and guidance, just like you becoming a new creature in Christ. Now we do it through Yahweh Shah, Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah. You understand? We do that through him. We become a new creature. Adam was directly dealing with the Most High, and he became a new man. So he is the beginning of our lineage, right? And she conceived and bare Cain, and I said, I've gotten a man from the Lord. Verse 2. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So Abel was a farmer, was a sheep herder. So he was in control of the animals, right? But Cain was a tiller of the ground. So he was more of a gardener, right? And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Now here we go. The law of offerings, of sacrifices for the Lord. There is a law of sacrifice that we find generations after this that's given to Moses, that Moses established in Leviticus, right? But we see this here in Genesis. And what does the word Genesis mean? The origins, the beginning. It's pre-Moses, right? A offering unto the Lord. And Abel, he also brought the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. I wonder why. I wonder why the Lord respected Abel's offering. Because Abel understood the law. Abel was given the law. We know it, even though it doesn't directly say this in the scripture, but this is when we can apply knowledge, right? This is implied detail. This is context of the Bible. And this is what you don't have if you're not in this truth. If you're not in the right spirit, you don't understand these scriptures. You're not able to imply this logic of how was Cain, why did Cain bring the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof? We're going to just hold it right here and go to that law. We're going to go to Leviticus 1:1. All right. Let's go to the book of the law. This is the law that Moses established, right? This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 1, verse 1. And the Lord called unto Moses, and he spake unto him out of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, speak unto the children of Israel. Speak unto everyone. No, this is not for everyone. This was not given to everyone then, and it's not given to everyone during this time period. Just like it's not given to everyone now. The law, statutes, and commandments is only for blacks, Hispanics, and natives. We're the only one that knows these oracles and understand these oracles and should be executing these oracles of God, these statutes and commandments, following these instructions, right? Because we are the children of Israel that the Bible's speaking of. We are the further generation. We are the seed of those people. We are the offspring. Those are our foremothers and forefathers. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, if any man you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your offerings of the cattle, even of the herd and of the flock. Verse 3, and in his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd. Let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. At the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. Right? What are we reading right now? And Abel also brought the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof. The fat thereof meaning it's a unblemished. It's the fat. It's the good animal. It's the fat animal. It's the animal that you would like to keep for yourself, that you could feed, and that lamb, and you're gonna cook lamb for months. You're gonna be eating lamb for weeks off that fat lamb. It's nice and healthy and beautiful, man. I could just taste that lamb that Abel bought. So I'm so like it. Maybe I'm just hungry. But it was the fat thereof. You understand? For the Lord. But let's go to verse 5. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Once again, it's not about, we're not getting into the story to go into the story between how Cain and Abel were one pleased the Lord and one didn't. This story is to show you how Abel knew to bring. Cain also knew, but Cain chose not to. Cain was supposed to give the Lord what the law required. The law didn't say bring you any vegetables. The law says offering of the cattle, even of the herd and of the flock. He could have bought a bird, a dove. You understand? Let's. Where else is the law of sacrifice? Let me see. Yeah, he could have brought. He could have brought. You understand, anything other than what he brought. That's because Cain had the animals. You know what I'm saying? Cain knew to be a to understand to be bring the fatness of his salaki of his offering, right? Let me get back to Genesis where we were reading. In 1 second. Right. Like I said, and Cain was jealous of his brother because the Lord respected, you know what I'm saying, his offering. And the Lord even told him in verse 7, let's go to that. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. Holy my. What did we say sin is again? According to 1 John 3 and 4, sin is the transgression of the law. Right? So he's telling you, if you do well, your sacrifice will be accepted. But if you do not do well, then sin lieth at the door. You are in sin. He didn't offer him the proper offering. Right? According to the law of Moses. Give me 1 second. All right, we back. Let's give it a second. My bad for that. We should be back now. Just want to make sure we good. All right, so excuse me. Once again, thank y'all for staying with me. Once again, Cain's offering wasn't accepted because it was not what the Lord requires in the law of sacrifice. If you're going to make an offering, it must be an offering according to the law. Cain's offering wasn't, and Abel's was. We're going to get more into the laws existing prior to Moses. We're going to stay in Genesis and go into the 9th chapter and verse 11. It's the book of Genesis, the 9th chapter, verse 11. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off anymore by the waters of a flood. This is the covenant that the Lord made with Moses and his offspring and his people. He made a covenant. He made a covenant to establish he made a agreement to establish his covenant with Noah and his offspring. Neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the covenant. This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generation. This is the law continuing. This is him choosing now someone from also Adam's lineage and to continue with the offspring of Adam to give the covenant to and to continue with the laws. And this is Noah. This is during Noah's time when he destroyed all the people on the earth except for one family, and that is Noah's family. And this is who the people of this work, who all the nations come from, Noah's offspring, right? And it talks about he set the bow in the cloud as a token of the covenant between me and the earth. We can drop that. I think we're good. Well, we can talk about what the rainbow. So every time you see a rainbow outside, so this is how you know the Bible is real. Every time you see a rainbow after it floods, after it rains, right? After it rains, you see a rainbow. For the Lord established, he established his covenant with Noah. You know what I'm saying? He established that covenant that showed that the Lord was gonna, keep his promise that he made with Noah. We can read it right here. It says, although and if all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of the fowl, the cattle, and beast, and every creepy thing, and upon the earth, every man, and all those whose nostrils was breath of life, and all in whose nostrils was a breath of life, and all that was in the dry land died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle and the creepy things, and the fowl of the heaven, they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. All right. So that's the covenant that he established with Noah. But let's go back a little bit, right? So in Noah, prior to him establishing this covenant, he gave Noah instruction on what animals to bring. He gave him instructions on what's clean and unclean. We're going to read about that. We're going to read about the unclean and clean animals and how did Noah know what's clean and unclean? Because Noah had the law. Let's read that. The book of Genesis chapter 7 verse 2. We'll start with verse 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark. And for thee I have seen righteous before me in this generation. So Noah was the righteous one of his generation. Only one. And of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female. Every clean beast. Where do we get the clean beast from? That sounds familiar. Let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 11, and we're going to start at verse 2. This is the law of Moses. This is showing you the similarities between the unclean beast in Moses and the unclean beast of what the Lord commanded, right? And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, this is the book of Leviticus, chapter 11, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the earth. The beasts that are on the earth, whatso pertaining to the hoof or cloven and cheweth the cud among the beasts, ye shall eat. Nevertheless, these ye shall not eat, them that chew the cud or them that divide the hoof, as the camel, because it cheweth the cud, but denieth not the hoof. He is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he chewed the cud, but not denied the hoof. He is unclean unto you. So we're seeing a similarity. And of every clean beast thou shalt take thee by seven, the male and his female. And of every beast that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Do you understand that? Every beast that is clean and every beast that is unclean. So there's a difference between an animal that's clean unto us and an animal that's unclean established in the day of Noah in his generation. How does Noah know this? If the law didn't exist prior to Moses. Because the same law of Moses telling you what animals are unclean and what animals are clean is the same law that the Most High. When he says unclean, he's saying that's good for you to eat. If it's unclean to you, it's not an animal you can eat. So for you bacon lovers, pork is unclean. For you shrimp lovers, shrimp is unclean. For you crab lovers, crab is unclean. Lobster, all of the oysters, they're unclean to you. Moses knew this, and also did Noah. Noah knew this. These animals are considered unclean. Right? So we can drop that. And we can go into another generation. Let's go into Abraham. This is an offspring of Noah. Right? Abraham understood that the law existed. He understood the law of tithes and the law of sacrifice as well. Let's go to Genesis 15 and 9. We'll go to the book of Genesis 15 and 9. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 15 and verse 9. He said unto him, take me here a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took him into all these, and divided them into the midst, and laid each piece one against another. But the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcass, Abraham drove them away. This is just showing you that Abraham was making a sacrifice unto the Lord. How did he know the law of sacrifice? If the laws existed only with Moses, it shows you that the law was not only established prior to Moses, but there was men that the Lord made covenants with because they kept the law. The Lord loved them, and they're honored by the Most High in all in this Bible, and they're shown that these people are of importance. These people are these brothers who was obedient to the Lord was rewarded. You understand? They were chosen to be the forefathers and the forefathers of our people, of our nation. And the Lord may establish covenants with them, agreements that they would inherit the earth and inherit land and all these things for their obedience. This is how we got our inheritance, through our ancestors, Noah and our ancestors Noah and our ancestor Abraham. You understand? And it's through their obedience of the law that they were able to live. Noah only was able to live because he was obedient to the Lord and followed his commandments and understood that the Lord telling him to do these things is a big deal. This is what life is about. Your obedience to the Most High, your completion and following of the law, statutes, and commandments. And these existed prior to Moses. Right? We also going to show you that tithes existed, right? There's also a commandment, right? We're going to go into Genesis 14. Genesis 14 and 18. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 14, verse 18. Hold on, we'll start in verse 17. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from his slaughter of the the Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him, the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. Verse 17, verse 18. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Right? This is showing you that the priesthood existed before the Levites. Right? Because in the book of Leviticus, the Levites are the priests, but there was a priesthood prior to the Levites. Right? And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abraham of the Most High God, possessor of the heaven and earth. And blessed be the most," in verse 20, "blessed be the Most High God, which have delivered thy enemies into thy hand." And he gave him tithes of all. Once again, what is this showing? This is showing that he gave him tithes of all. What does that mean? The spoils that Abraham had, the Lord that Abraham had won from completing his victory, he gave tithes to Melchizedek. But tithes exist in the book of Leviticus. Leviticus, we can go to chapter 27 and 30. Right? The book of Leviticus, chapter 27, verse 30. And all the tithe of the land, whether the seed of the land, the fruit of the land, is the Lord's, and it is holy unto the Lord. Right? And we're going to drop down to verse 32. And concerning the tithe of the herd of the flock, even of whatsoever passes under the rod, the tenth shall be holy unto the Lord. So giving a tenth, tithe just means tenth. A tenth of all the things that you possess. You know what I'm saying? Your increase, the things that in this world, it would be a tenth of your income, right? You're not farmers. You're not sheep herders. You're not giving a tenth of your flock, but you are going to give a tenth of your paycheck to the Most High, right? And these things are for the Lord. Also, we can go to the book of Deuteronomy, where it also talks about giving a tenth, right? Deuteronomy 14 and 22. We go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 14, verse 22. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth by year. You understand? Once again, bring it that tithe. It's telling you that you should tithe, but also, how did Abraham know to pay tithes? Right? Because tithes existed prior to the law of Moses. Now we're going to go into the New Testament to show you that the law was not only not destroyed, but we are supposed to fulfill the law according to Christ, right? We're going to start with Matthew 23 and 23. Let's start with what Christ said. Matthew 5 and 17. This is a bedrock scripture, because this is in red, and this is to show you, he said it plain as day, that he is not here to destroy the law. It says, think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Meaning he's going to show you how to do the law. He's to fulfill. You're fulfilling the law. That means you're doing the law, right? If I have a duty that's fulfilled, right, that means I did the duty, right? If I have something fulfilled, that means it's something that was done. So Christ didn't come to do away with the law. He came to fulfill the law, right? Verse 18, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Right? There ain't not one jot, not one tittle. There's nothing changing in the law until all be fulfilled. And that law endureth forever, like we read before. It's going to endure forever and forever. Right? We're going to break down. We're going to show you Christ also kept the Feast of Dedication, which we can find in Leviticus. Right? Then we got to keep this feast. We're going to go to John chapter 10, verse 22. It's the book of John, chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication. And it was winter, and Jesus walked into the temple in Solomon's porch. And then came the Jews round about him, and said unto him, how long dost thou make us to doubt? If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. All right? This is Christ keeping the Feast of Dedication, which is ordained for us to keep throughout our generations, according to the scriptures, to the Bible. You understand? Christ kept the Feast of Dedication. This is something in the New Testament. How come the Christians are not keeping the Feast of Dedication? How come they're not following? They're supposed to be following after Christ. We're going to drop that and go to John chapter 7, verse 53. Actually, let's go to John chapter, what we want? John 7 and 53. No, not. We can go to John. We can start with John 7 and let me see. We could go to where they talk about Christ, them trying to take Christ But let's go to John. We're gonna drop that and go to John 8 and 11, where Christ said to the woman. We'll start at verse. We'll start in verse 4, John 8 and 4. They say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses, verse 5, now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? So these are the Pharisees trying to tempt Christ with the law, because Christ understood the law still existed. The law was still in effect, that if you're caught in the act of adultery, you should be stoned, right? So let's see if Christ said that the law was done, that you didn't have to honor Moses' law. Because they're trying to tell you that they knew that if they can catch Christ up going against the law of Moses, that he could be crucified for that. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such shall be stoned. But what sayest thou? This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down with his finger, wrote on the ground, as they thought, as he heard them not. So when he continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. This is heavy stuff right here. He didn't say don't stone her. He just said if you don't got sin in you, if you're not sinning, if you're not breaking the law yourself, because the law still existed, then you can cast the first stone at her. We'll drop down to verse 10. When Jesus lifted up himself and saw that none but the woman, said unto the woman, where are those thine accusers? Have no man condemned thee? She said, no man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. And he didn't say the law is done away with. He said, sin no more. Break the law no more. Transgress the law not anymore. Right? If you don't know who this is, JC, this is a priest of God, man. We and you are in a class where we teaching the scriptures, man. Go watch this class from the beginning and get some context on why you need to be in class if you are a so-called Black, Hispanic, or Native American Indian. If you're not one of those three things, you understand? And you're not one of the 12 tribes, then you can go get the hell on. You understand? You ain't got to be in this class. We ain't asking you to be here. All right? But if you are, then go ahead and tune in. Let's get it. Once again, I'm showing you that Christ and the laws were established and continued in the New Testament. There is no drop off from the Old Testament to the New Testament and the keeping of the law. The law must be kept no matter what. All right. Let's get to Paul. Paul also taught to keep the law. All right. Let's get it. Romans 3, and we're going to go to 28. We're going to go to Romans 3 and 28. There's the book of Romans, chapter 3, verse 28. Therefore, we conclude that the man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. Verse 29, is he the God of the Jews only? Is not he also the God of the Gentiles? Yes, of the Gentiles also, seeing it is one God which shall justify the circumcision by faith and the uncircumcision through faith. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yeah, we established the law. This is Paul telling you, just because you are in those times someone who was circumcised doesn't mean that if someone is not circumcised but keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, that the Lord is not going to, you know what I'm saying, that the Lord is not with them, or the Lord is not going to allow them salvation. because he is the God of both of those that knew that they were Jews, or those that were living their life as Gentiles that were Jews but living their life as Gentiles. He is the God of both of them. Therefore, the law is not only for the ones that knew that they the Jews, is also for those that didn't know that they were Jews, that were uncircumcised. Those of you that didn't know you were Israelites, just right now in this class, that don't understand that you Israelites, you have the same access to Christ and to the forgiveness as someone who has been in the school for years and has been living as an Israelite for years. Just because you didn't know it doesn't mean that you don't have that opportunity. You know what I'm saying? And that's the same thing that Paul had to deal with. Those that were circumcised from birth, and that they were circumcised on the 8th day like the law required, and those that wasn't, but they still were able to keep the law. And once they learned, you know what I'm saying, what to do and right, they shall be accepted as well. That's why you are being accepted. And I was accepted because I didn't know these things from my birth. You understand? But through Christ and his sacrifice, and through, you know what I'm saying, him dying for us, we're able to come into the covenant. Right? That's why it says we establish the law. It doesn't say we abolish the law, we establish the law. The law is for forever. Right? Faith without works. You must have works. You must not just believe in the law. You must show your faith with works. Understand? You must show your faith with how your actions, everything that you're doing. Because faith without works is dead, according to the book of James. All right? Go to Romans 7:7. It's the book of Romans, chapter 7, verse 7. What shall we say then? Is it law of sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. This is what we understand. The law is your guideline on what is right and wrong. You would not know the law if there wasn't something saying, you would not know what you're doing is wrong. There wasn't a law to establish what's right from wrong. All right? There has to be law and order. The laws are forever. That's why we still have them now, because without us knowing what the laws is now, then we would still be doing right from wrong. If we just take away the law and act as if it doesn't exist, then you become like the Christian church. And we know in the Christian church they're eating pork, they're having homosexual pastors, so like alternative lifestyle pastors, you understand, and all the above, because they're living as if the law doesn't exist. And that's what we said, God forbid, because without the law, you don't know that what you're doing is wrong. So because the Christian church is not following the law, they're allowing for these pastors to have an alternative lifestyle. And that's slowly being brought to the forefront. Before they would do it behind the scenes. Now it's being brought to the forefront. They're putting it on social media. They're just brandishing it out in the front, in the open, and telling you to accept it because you've accepted it thus far. Why not accept it from the pastor? You accept it from your sons, your daughters, and your uncles and your cousins. Why not the pastor now? Now you got to accept the pastor because guess what? They're just like your family. But if you have the law, you're able to see that what the pastor, what your family has been doing is wrong. Anyone that's living that lifestyle is living, a horrible lifestyle, is living a sinful lifestyle according to the scriptures, are living in sin. You understand? So what you living in sin, therefore you understand this is the reason why people are dying in the streets, because we are living a sinful lifestyle. We're living in sin and transgression of law. And like we said in Baruch, those who go away from the commandments, they shall die. And those that find the commandments shall live. Right? We can keep going. Wherefore the law, where was we at? We in Romans. So this is heavy, what Paul is breaking down. We're gonna read it again. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. No, the law ain't sin. It's not bad, right? The law is not sin. God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. What we just brought out. These Christian pastors are trying to change the law by you saying that the law don't exist. Now you don't know sin. Now you think sin is just what makes you feel bad. So if you feel like sleeping with man makes you feel good, then to you that's not a sin, right? Because you don't know the law. If you take away the laws, statutes, and commandments, then you don't have the structure, right? The structure and the infrastructure is gone. For I had not known lust except the law had said, but thou shalt not covet. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrote in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead. Right? What does that mean? For without the law, sin was dead. For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. What does that mean? Christians will have you believe that the law is bad, that without the law, you living in sin. I mean, with the laws, you living in sin, but this is not what it's talking about. It's telling you that without the law, like if you living without the law right now, we don't have the laws of sacrifice, but we still don't sin. Those of you that's in the school, you don't have the law of the Levitical priesthood coming to, execute judgment. You know what I'm saying? And you going before the judges for your matters. You don't sin because you choose the Lord and you love the Lord. The law was written in your inward parts like the Lord said he would do. Right? For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me. Speaking on how people would sin because they knew they could make a sacrifice to get for repentance. So if you sinning and you had your little your cattle or whatever offering off to the Lord ready to go, and you were forgiven for that because you made that sacrifice depending on the sin, right? So sin it didn't stop you from sinning, is what he's trying to say. The law of sacrifice didn't stop you from sinning. Sin was revived, right? Or if you did something, you was put to death. Was then that which is good made death unto me? God forbid, but sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I'm carnal, sold under sin. For that which I do allow not, for what I would, that do I not, but what I hate, that I do. You understand? This is what we live every day. You understand? He's saying that the law is spiritual, meaning it's something that is in you. It's something that you are choosing to do, right? It's something that's on your spirit. You either have the spirit that wants to do the right thing or spirit that wants to do the wrong thing. And that's what makes your flesh, makes these things come about carnally, right? Because if you can control your spirit and control your ambitions, your lust, your thoughts, then your actions can be controlled, because you won't think to do something wrong because you won't act on it, on your thoughts, right? If you think lawful thoughts, then your actions are going to be lawful. But if you're thinking sinful thoughts, then your actions are going to be sinful, right? That's what he means by it being spiritual. When something is spiritual, that is just, noting that it's not it's not something physical. It's something that you're doing mentally. It's who you are. It's what makes up your spirit. You know what I'm saying? It's in you. It's in your mind. It's you process the way you process things. You know, your countenance, your demeanor. Right? We're gonna drop that. It's gonna be the last scripture we're gonna bring. Go to Jeremiah 31 and 31. Because we were promised, right? We were promised that we were going to inherit the kingdom and that we would live forever. And this is showing you that the laws is forever because we are forever. Going to be forever. Book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, and we're going to go on verse 31. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith the Lord. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. Now, this is the time that we are in right now. We are under this covenant right now, where the law is in our inward parts, meaning it's in our mind, it's spiritual, is what Paul was just talking about. The law being spiritual, because the first covenant, we had the law physical, it's carnal. You did things, you made a physical sacrifice. Now, your sacrifice is not doing these things in the first place. Your sacrifice is knowing that the Lord has a promise for you and that the kingdom is near and that you are choosing to not sin. You are choosing to walk away from pork, shrimp, crab, lobster. You are choosing to walk away from having sex with other nations. You are choosing to walk away from celebrating Christmas because your love for the Lord. He made us this way in this generation of where we don't have that temptation of that sacrificial lamb. Christ was that sacrificial lamb. So we're not farmers or sheep herders where we're gonna offer up a lamb or a dove or something for our sins. What we're doing is we're putting our life on the line by not sinning. You understand? We're not by not sinning, but we understand that sin could cost us our life. So by us not sinning, we are trying to prolong our life, right? We understanding that the Lord's commandments are put in our hearts, right? He's putting us in our hearts and our minds for us to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, for us to continue out and do throughout the generations of our life and teach our children to honor him without that pressure of the Levites coming, you understand, to judge over you, knowing that our King made the ultimate sacrifice. You should have in the back of your mind before you do anything, think about what Christ did for you to have this chance to be alive right now. For the Lord to accept you. You understand? You have Christ paid the price with his life for your life to be still survive, for you to survive, for you to still be alive after you sinned against the Lord, sinned and broke the Lord's laws. Because all of us have done these things, right? But now we are a new creature in Christ, and we're here to establish and to live out this covenant and honor this covenant that we made with the Most High God, because this is the only way that our salvation is going to come. And with that, class dismissed. Shalom. Shalom Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shabbarakatham to all of Israel. Shalom Yahweh Shamar Alatah Hashem Yahweh Shah to the sisters. It's the ISUPK Las Vegas. We started out on 1 West 125th Street in Harlem, New York. We are under Commanding General Yohana And if you have any brothers or sisters that's in the world that's seeking knowledge and needs brotherhood and sisterhood, or needs someone to talk to, needs correction and guidance spiritually, you understand, who wants to learn these scriptures, you can hit us up at ISUPK Nevada. You can hit us up at any city, put ISUPK in front of that city or state, and you will find contact information. Hit us up on all of our social media, ISUPK Nevada and ISUPK Las Vegas. You know what I'm saying? And with that, shalom.